Hello. Hey. Okay, welcome everybody. Here we are, Baruch Hashem, with another Chassidus New Year Farbrengen. Today we want to celebrate. Oh, 1 second. Can I borrow someone's phone with the names? As you guys all know, hopefully by now, this is a book that Living Chassidus made with a 1 page of daily reading in preparation and achana for all the upcoming Yamim Tovim. So there's just one short, beautiful page, and it helps you be ready and not have to wait for Farbrengen about Yitzis Kislev to figure out what's going on Yitzis Kislev. So as part of that, we also provide you with a journal and the best pen in the whole wide world, because everybody loves the Living Chassidus pen. And as part of that, if you do, or when you do your daily reading, and when you do your daily reading and you do at least one journal entry based on one of the questions a week, then we give out incredible prizes. So I want to celebrate everybody who did their weekly quota since our last time. And it is Bela Kalendarova, Eliana Viva, Esther Citron, Rachel Greenglass, Rachel Schmerling, Adina Lapine, Ruta Cohen, Hamadina Herzl, Chaya Banon, Chaya Liebman, and Ariela Zuckerman. We have to update some names. So the good news is that you guys all earned the prize. The other news is that it didn't come in the mail yet. So I'll announce, and you guys can imagine, we have some incredible, what is that thing called? Cell phone power bank. That's what it's called. Yes, portable charger. And on the portable charger, it says, I power up, or I charge up with Living Chassidus. Whatever. When it comes, you'll see it. It's great. It's a wonderful prize, and you guys should all work hard to earn it. Okay. With that, as everybody gets settled, yay! Come, everybody, come sit down. We already started, so let's get settled. Okay. Tonight, we have the great schus of having a speaker who I really over the years and over my husband knowing him and hearing him from different time periods. I think he really represents a lot of what Living Chassidus stands for. The idea that Chassidus should be lived, that the lessons of Chassidus don't stay in a book, that they apply to our everyday life. He has spoken for us in the past, and we've had the great schus of having him join again tonight. His name is Rabbi Aharon Loschak. He's a writer, an editor, and rabbi who lives in Brooklyn, New York with his family. He is the editor of JLI's popular Torah Studies program. He is passionate about teaching transformational Jewish ideas. And here we have him. Thank you very, very much. You want to clip this on your... Sure. Yes, there you go.
Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. It's an honor and a privilege, and I hope I could live up to half of what was said in that wonderful introduction. So to begin, I want you to imagine to yourself a scenario. I don't know if this has happened to you, but maybe it did, maybe it didn't. I think you could relate to this anyways. But imagine your 12, 13-year-old self. Imagine you go to overnight camp. Any of you went to overnight camp? Kids? You went to overnight camp? No? Yes? Yeah. Sometime? Yes, sir. You went away from home for a certain amount of time, and let's say it's a month, 2 months, and then you're on your way back home, and you're all excited. You're going to come home, and your parents are going to be waiting for you, and all the other little kids that are always usually grabbing your parents' attention are going to be in bed, hopefully, because you're going to come late because you're older. And They're going to make a special dinner for you because you've been away for a month or two, and they're going to give you undivided attention. It's going to be so nice, and you're really looking forward to this. The whole bus ride home or plane ride home, or however many hours it is. You're thinking, and then you come home, and your parents are distracted, and one of the little kids that afternoon fell down the stairs and is in the ER, and your parents don't have time for you, or something like that. And all that picture that you had, that movie that you played in your mind of how it's going to be amazing and you're going to get all this attention, just goes poof. And now you're traumatized and deal with your therapist the rest of your life, right? Never happened? Can you understand? By the way, I did this to my kids. But so this, I don't know if it ever happened to you personally, but if it hasn't, I'm sure you can understand that these types of things happen every single day. Huh? You blocked it out. You shoved it under the rug. You're not going to deal with it. Makes sense. Or imagine when you're not 13 years old. Imagine you psych yourself up for a big trip, right? Have any of you ever been to, let's say, a spiritual journey to some Kivrei Tzadikim? I don't know, Hadich in Ukraine. Anybody ever been there?
Yeah.
Okay, so imagine. I don't know if this is your experience, but I can imagine this happening. So imagine, let's say, you prepare yourself and you're all psyched up, and you've never been there before. You've heard about it. You have this image of how it's going to be. It's going to be very spiritual. You're going to walk in on some sort of cloud and walk out on some sort of even bigger cloud. Exactly. And then you go and it's raining and you get dirty and your shoes are messed up, and now you don't know what to do the whole time you're there, and then it's freezing and you don't have the time, and it doesn't work out. And now you're on your way home fighting with some Ukrainian taxi driver, and your whole image has just been shattered. Does that ever happen to you? Maybe.
Yeah.
Could happen, right? So, I mean, I went to Ukraine. Baruch Hashem, my experience wasn't exactly like that, but it was raining. But the point of what I'm getting at is that this is a very, very common phenomenon, that the major disappointment here is not necessarily the event as it transpires, because go back to your 13-year-old self. If your parents don't give you the undivided attention on your way back from camp, okay. I mean, I'm not saying it's a good, but it's not terrible. It's just like any other night when your parents don't have time for you. Why is it any different? The difference is that you had this idea, you had this picture, you had this image that you painted of how it's going to be so incredible, and here it's not. So the frustration thereof is what gets you. And that's the same if your spiritual trip doesn't so exactly pan out the way you wanted it to, so then you get all disappointed and it doesn't live up to what you thought it would be, because again, you have that picture. And when the picture gets smudged or it doesn't work out exactly the way you imagined it to be, it's extremely frustrating. So I want to talk about that today. And as I was walking here, I did give it more thought than just that. But earlier today, I was thinking about it, that I have the privilege of being a rabbi of a shul here in Kreis for young men who are even younger than me, can you imagine? And so, we talk about certain types of things. So this is, needless to say, it's a little bit out of my comfort zone. So I was thinking to myself, I don't know what to tell you. So I figured, you know what? I'll tell you one thing that for me is very profound and very important, and I'll share it with you. If it works, good. If not, also, I hope it's okay. But so I'll tell it to you right now in 3 sentences. You can decide if you like it, good. If not, it's going to go downhill from there. So, you could choose. So the point is, I'm going to tell you what I hope to talk about today, now, the next 45 minutes, is a very simple point. And hopefully we'll draw from Chassidus, and you'll see how this runs through so many different things. But the point is very simple, is that in life, when we have pictures that we paint of how life should be, of how it's supposed to be at a certain age, at a certain stage, at a certain point of our lives, on a micro, macro level, any level, that's a tremendous pitfall. That's setting yourself up for disaster, aggravation, frustration, and agitation. And you can add more adjectives if you'd like. That, and one of the keys to living a healthy and happy life, I know it's a really broad statement, you can hear that from every guru who thinks they know what they're talking about, but it's true. And that is knowing that there's only one thing there's only one place, only one picture that you ever have to draw in your life. And that is the picture that Hashem wants to read today. And I have no idea what it is. You have no idea what it is. You have no idea what it's going to be tomorrow or next 5 minutes. But as long as you're nimble and flexible enough to know that it's really not about any picture that you may have thought of or you're going to continue to paint, but rather it's simply what Hashem wants from you today, and you follow it, then I promise you'll be 1,000 times happier than you would be if on the other approach. That's it in a nutshell. You really, everything else, I'm just going to waste your time from here. So let's back it up. The Yotis Kislev, right? I mean, Emir Hashem tomorrow night. And the primary objective, I think, I don't need the story, Baruch Hashem, I think you all know. But the point is that Yotis Kislev is the time where we really could think about this every day, but it's a time where we focus on it even more, right? Like Thanksgiving. And we're thankful every day, but we have one day where we're particularly thankful. And it's a time to think about the impact of what Chassidus has on our lives, which I believe is literally the raison d'etre of this organization. So that kind of works out. So, and if you think about it, and knowing, just going into just a tiny detail of the actual story, we know that it's not, Yotis Kislev wasn't the difference of Chassidus being available versus not being available, but rather in the quality and the quantity thereof, right? We all know about the two periods of before Petersburg and after Petersburg, which is Yiddish way of saying St. Petersburg, and that's where the Alter was imprisoned. So the point is that the growth was the availability, the accessibility that the Alter Rebbe gave to Chassidus thereafter was exponentially greater than it was prior. So if that's what the mandate of Yotis, if that's what Yotis Kislev is about, it's about understanding, it's about appreciating that Chassidus has been made available to us in an ever more accessible and in an ever more real way. So then that's what we should be doing over the next couple of days, figuring out how that makes any sense. Because if you think about it, is that really true in our case? In me, you, and whoever is in this room, you go talk to yourself, right? Is that really the case? The Alter went to prison for this, remember, right? And it's been many generations since, and this thing is ongoing. And the question is, there's a lot of ideas, a lot of books on the shelf today more than ever, and there's so many different books. But it doesn't matter how many books there are. There could be another 100 books, and there could be another 100 translations. You could translate another 100 books and make them more available. But if it's not talking to you, it's completely irrelevant. And so on a day like Yotis Kislev, you have to think about, is it relevant for me? Is it working? And I think, and I mean, I'm a little biased on this, but I think as far as Chassidus is working for anyone, the ideas are there. It's not about the ideas. I think the ideas are they're very powerful. The ideas exist. The question is really just a question of language. What language are you using for yourself? I'm not talking about what someone else is teaching you. I mean, hopefully they teach you well as well. But at the end of the day, it's going to be up to you to find a language that talks to you. Now, I work in translation all the time, as mentioned. I do a lot of editing. And I learned, Baruch Hashem, of the privilege of translating Chassidus also all the time. And a lot of times I'll get, especially as time goes on, I get, what's the word I'm looking for? People want to work. I work in JLI, so they're not working for me per se, but they're working with me. And so I get to edit and see new incoming applicants on the job, see how their translations. And if by now, it's Baruch Hashem, I've been doing this for a number of years, there's certain words that I look out for. Right away, I can tell if they're a rookie or not. And I'm not doing this to just to throw any young translators under the bus, even though that is what I'm going to do. But the point is that there's a lot of words out there. There's a lot of words out there that we've been using and overusing a little bit too much. And because we're using them so much, they become meaningless. They don't mean anything too much. So if we're going to, so I see lots of translations of my Morim and Tanya. It's good. English is great. If you're translating into English, that's great. But translation is a lot more than just importing it from one language to the next. It's about what does it mean to me. So, I always joke with people that if you're permeating the essence, it's not going to work. You can't be permeating the essence. Okay. You got to talk. You got to find better language that works better. Okay.
Very inspiring.
Yeah. So in general, the word essence, right? Just to harp on one word. I always had this hunch that word doesn't mean anything, right? Essence. What is that? Essence of Hashem. We use it. What Hebrew word do we use that for all the time? Etzem, right? So essence. Okay. So it's like it's a cheating word, because when you don't really know what it means, you just say it's the essence of it. So I always had this hunch. And then one day I'm reading that there's, those seltzers, the LaCroix seltzers, those flavored seltzers.
Yeah.
Right. So when they first came out, it was like it hit the market with with a storm. Everybody was eating this stuff up. And over time, people started wondering, how is it zero sugar, but it definitely has fruit flavor in it. So like, what's going on? So if you look on the cans, it still says, by the way, says it has fruit essence. So it was a court case. They took them to court. Like, what does essence mean? And the company was very dodgy. They wouldn't divulge exactly what it meant. They give a lot of words and about nothing. And so I'm reading this article and I'm like, listen, it's literally a court case. I mean, my hunch is correct. The word doesn't mean anything. So you're just hiding behind the word that doesn't mean. So the point is that you have to find, the person has to, anyone, you, me, anyone has to find words that actually work, that talk and mean something. Because when you open TikTok, that works, right? We all know it works, it talks, there's language there, it's easily connectable, easily relatable. So that makes sense. You walk outside, you talk to people, you have conversation, you have things popping up at you from your phone all day. Those things are real. Those things have relatable language immediately, right? I mean, again, the ones who are good at it, at least. And if we're just throwing, Tanya and translating it with old stale words, it's not going to work. So we have to figure out, we have to work and figure out words. And it's not just the words. I'm using the word words, but words is reflective of how you understand, right? Because words shape the way we think. And you have to find the right words to express and articulate these ideas to yourself. And it's like, I'll tell you, for example, I was one night, my daughter, she's a young teenager. She comes home and they're learning Tanya in class. So she needed to get tested for her test upcoming. She needed to review for her upcoming test. So she gave me the sheets, test her. So I'm reading, it's from Parakal of Tanya. So I'm reading it and I'm telling you, it was a painful experience. I'm reading this and I'm like, why? I mean, if my daughter ever learns Tanya again, I think it's a miracle. It will be a miracle. So first of all, you can imagine, if I asked you, if you had to teach Tanya Parakal, where would you start from? Where would you start? Or anything. Or if you had to pick Parakal, where would you start from? The two souls on the second page of the two dots, right? That's where I would start. The whole first page and a half. Because when does Alter Rebbe first address any of those questions? Right? The first time, maybe in Parakut Beis.
You just have to explain it at the hook. Are you being serious?
13-year-old hook? I don't know.
Are you being serious?
I'm being absolutely serious.
Because I learned Tanya when I was 13.
Okay.
We started, the Starbucks.
Yeah.
And we started Parakal Tanya.
Starbucks I will do.
And Parakal Tanya, I learned it from a teacher. Aside from being a really talented teacher, she teaches Tanya with, you can tell, even it's like 13-year-old kids who didn't know what too many were before. She teaches it with an attitude of, I lived my life like this, and so can you.
Okay.
Even starting Parakal Tanya, just with those words, she was already able to give us.
Okay. Listen, if it works for you, then great. And if it works for her.
If you like, I can teach her to start from the other page.
Okay.
That too.
I would probably still start from the second page, but maybe when I become like that teacher, maybe. But I'm not holding there yet. So I would definitely start. If I had to start from anywhere, I'd start from Parakal Vav. But if I had to start, but if I would start from Parakal, I would definitely start from the second two dots. Because why? Especially at the level of detail that was going on in these sheets, mapping out all the different rayas of what the baby does, it doesn't mean, and like, again, you'll get there. You'll get there. And Baruch Hashem, I know it. Took me some time, but I got it. But now listen, maybe yeah, maybe not. It's debatable. But the point is there. The point is that we have to find parts of Chassidus that talk to us and teach them and talk about them and learn them in relevant ways. I'll bring you a mimer from the Alter Rebbe that talks about this very point. And there's a mimer in Parashas Boy, Torah. The Alter Rebbe talks about the name Tzivos Hashem, right? Now the name, we know that the name of Tzvakos is one of the 7 names that are not allowed to be erased, right? The Zayin, Shem, Shem, and Chak. But the name Tzvakis does not appear the entire Torah. In the Chumash Torah, right? It doesn't appear there. It first appears in Nevi'im. Shmuel Hanavi is the first one to use it. So the only thing you'll find in actual Chumash is the Tzivos Hashem, but that's not a reference to Hashem. Rather, that's a reference to the Jewish people. The first time the name Tzvakis is used as the name of the Eibishter is in Nevi'im. Shmuel Hanavi. So the Alter Rebbe asks, why? What changed? And I'm not going to get into the Kabbalah of it, but the point is that the Alter Rebbe explains that Moshe Rabbeinu taught Torah straight from Atzilus, right? That's what Moshe was. He was in the Neshama of Atzilus, and he had the language of Atzilus. So the names of the names of the Eibishter that Moshe used were all connected to Havaya. Havaya is an Atzilus. So he taught from that level, and that's not the level of the language. That was the language Moshe Rabbeinu used. And considering, but here's the key. The audience that Moshe addressed was also on that level. We all know that the Doridea, the generation in the desert, were on a very, very high spiritual level. So Moshe could talk in that language. So Moshe had a language of Atzilus. His audience was primed to be able to listen and hear that language of Atzilus. So it was great. Everybody was happy. But then came the time of the Nevi'im of the prophets. And the language is no longer working. And if you open your Navi and you have the description of the way the Jewish people lived in Eretz Yisrael at the time, you could see it really wasn't working. It was a disaster. The Jewish people were completely. I mean, you think it bad. Now it's bad. It was really bad back then. There was nothing. It was like no organized religion. For all practical purposes, it was gone. The religion was dead. The Jewish people had only been given the Torah in the desert. They came into the land. They conquered the land. They settled in the land. Now they're all a bunch of farmers, and they have no organized religion. Nothing. They didn't know anything. So Shmuel Hanavi starts walking around. And he was like the Baal Shem Tov of his time, right? Or the Baal Shem Tov was like the Shmuel Hanavi of his time, really, right? And there's a Gilgal, one or the other, so it's kind of linked. It makes sense. So, but Shmuel Hanavi is going around. He's telling him, he's reminding them about the Torah. He's trying to teach them. So if he's going to talk in Moshe Rabbeinu's language of Havaya from the Torah of Atzilus, it's not going to work. So Shmuel Hanavi said, we need a new name. Now, a new name doesn't mean a new God. No, the ideas didn't change. It's the language that changed. Shmuel Hanavi needed to access the people because the audience was no longer primed to be able to hear the language of Torah that Moshe Rabbeinu taught. So he changed the language. He came up with a new way of identifying God to the people, and he said it's the name Tzvakis because Tzvakis is already in Bria. Again, not to get into the Kabbalah of it, but that's the point. So what's the point? What is the point? The point is very simple: is that we need ideas and we need languages, a language that can talk to us, to me, to you, regular, normal people living regular lives with regular everyday struggles. And if Chassidus is not doing that for you, then it's not the Chassidus is doing something wrong, it's you that's doing something wrong. So let's try to do that at least in one example. So I'll give you one example. Again, the idea I told you about 10 minutes ago. It really comes up in 1,000 different places, and we could really pick anywhere to talk about it. I think a great place to talk about it is a parsha we had a couple of weeks ago, Parsha Lech Lecha, right? Parsha Lech Lecha, the Eibishter tells Aharon that he tells him to go, and famously, he doesn't tell him where to go. Right? He picks up. He tells him Lech Lecha mi'atzcha mi'ladcha, and he tells him where. Where are you going to go? That's the pasuk in there. Hello, Aretz Asher, right? All right, Benny Freeman made a song out of it. So now people know. No, it's a different pasuk. Yeah, but it's a different pasuk. It's a conglomerate. Okay, good. It has the words Al Aretz Asher. So now we know. So the land. I'll take you to the land that I'm going to show you. That's where you should go. So, right? I mean, all the Mefarshim talk about this. Why didn't Hashem tell him where to go? And there's many different answers. But one answer that I think one of the most obvious answers is that really there's no question. What do you mean? Hashem wakes you up one day and tells you to go. The place where Hashem tells you to go is precisely the place where Hashem shows you. That's where you should go. You shouldn't be going anywhere else. The moment you know where you're going, then you're not necessarily going to the place where Hashem tells you to go. And you're going to the place that you want to go. And when you want to go to the place that you want to go, so sometime if you get there, good. What happens if you don't get there? So then it's not good, right? That's frustrating. So the approach that a person has to always take every single day when you wake up in the morning, saying, where am I going? I'm going one place. I'm going to the land where Hashem goes and it's going to show me. And I don't necessarily know where that's going to be. I have no idea where it's going to be. I'll give you another example. And there's again, I can find this thread once because that's the thing. Once you live an idea, it just comes up everywhere because it's everywhere. So it doesn't matter. You can find it in any place. You can always make it work. I was thinking to myself, what am I going to talk about tonight? This is what I'm living with the past couple of weeks. So I'll share it with you. I'm not going to make up something that I don't really connect with. So here it is. So I'll give you another example. This one's a little bit more abstract, but I think it's there. And the right after the Kriyas Yams, the Yidden are at the sea, and what happens right immediately after the whole, they cross, the water closes, the Egyptians are drowned, and they're about to go. What were they busy doing? Right after the scene. Collecting what? Collecting spoils, exactly. So much so. Now, what do we read? And it says the pasuk says Vayatsa, and Rashi points out it doesn't say Vayisa. It means that Moshe had to force them to go, right? That's what we read. So what's the obvious question? What's the obvious question? I hope it's obvious. Maybe it's not so obvious. Why do the people have to be forced, right? Think about it. What do they just endure? They went, they saw the 10 Makkos in Egypt. They saw Kriyas Yamsuf, splitting of the seas. I mean, a more open manifestation of godliness there hardly ever was. It says, right, what does it say in the Medrash, that what a shifcha saw, what a maidservant saw at the Yamsuf, even Yecheskel ben Buzi wasn't able to see, one of the greatest prophets. So the godliness was open, was rolling in the water, in the mud, on the riverbank, right? And here we are, and what are they doing? What are they occupying themselves with? Spoils. They're collecting gold, silver, money. I mean, this makes no sense. What are they doing? How does that add up? Imagine after the greatest Farbrengen that you've ever had in your life, you're all inspired. After Ne'ilah and Yom Kippur, you walk out of shul, and then you immediately go and you spend time, playing on the stock market so you can make another couple bucks. Does that make sense? You wouldn't do that. I mean, I hope not. It just doesn't make sense. And this is so much greater than that. So why would Moshe have to be pulling them away? So what's the answer? The answer the Rebbe explains. It's a sikha, I don't remember where. You can look it up later, but I didn't make it up. And the Rebbe explains that the Yidden were fulfilling a mitzvah. They had a mitzvah. They had a mitzvah from Hashem. What was the mitzvah that Hashem gave them? When they left Egypt, Hashem told them one thing. I mean, a number of things. He told them to bring a carbon pesa, which they did. He told them to paint the doorpost with blood, which they did. And he also told them to do what? To collect spoils. That's what he told them to do, right? Why? Because Hashem had a whole deal with Avraham Avinu. He's afraid Avraham Avinu was going to get upset at him, that he wasn't going to make good on his promises. So Hashem said, listen, right? He said, please. He used the word please. Hashem really made a strong request from the people that they should make sure to take spoils. So they were taken to the task. Hashem gave them a task. They were going to do the task all the way. So that's what they were doing. And it's no wonder why Hashem had to pull them away. Why did Hashem have to pull them away? Because they're fulfilling at direct command what Hashem said to do. But then Hashem said to collect spoils. That's what they were doing. But then the question then becomes, okay, so if that's what they're supposed to do, why did Hashem? But it doesn't really make sense. It still doesn't make sense. Because after all, who told them to collect spoils? It was Hashem who told them to collect spoils. And now Hashem was telling them, now you need to go to Har Sinai and get the Torah. So the same God who told you to get the spoils is not telling you to go get the Torah. Again, why would Moshe have to wrestle them away from what they're doing? If it's all about just fulfilling what Hashem said to do back in Egypt. So okay, so Hashem told you to get spoils, and now Hashem is telling you to go get the Torah. Why do we have to fight about it? Right? It's like a kid. You tell your kid, okay, put the computer away, it's time to go to bed. No, put it away. So they're not listening. They're listening. They're going to go to bed eventually, and they're on board. They're not outright defiant. They're going to do it almost, sometimes, maybe, eventually, hopefully, but it takes time. You got to pull them away. So why is Hashem pulling these kids away as if there's some kid scrolling through Facebook trying to go to bed? Why? And what's the answer? So the answer is that because they were invested. They're invested in everything that they were fully invested. And when you're fully invested in what you have to do, it's hard to be, you can't just be pulled away in a second. You can't. Hashem told me, do this. So I say, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it all the way. And I'm going to invest, and I'm going to build my house here. I'm going to live here forever. And I'm going to build my entire career, and all my friends are going to be around this one thing. And I'm going to build my social media profile around this thing. Everything is going to be here. That's what you told me to do, right? And then, so you can't just come knocking on my door and say, okay, something else. You got to go get the Torah now, something else. It's very hard to pivot like that. We're not humans. We're not usually like that. We don't just pick up and say, oh, you want me to do something else? Okay, I'll do something else. We don't naturally do that. So that's why when the Yidden were completely invested in what they were doing, it was very hard for them to simply pivot and say, okay, we're going to do something else. But the reality is that is how we have to approach it. And how do you approach it? How do you approach them? It becomes so what's the word I'm looking for? It becomes so like whiplash. You don't know what to do, because one day I'm supposed to be here, and the next day I'm supposed to be here, and you want me to be fully invested here, and you want me to build my career here, you want me to build my life here, you want me to be you want me to go all the way here, and the next day you pluck me out of here, and then you want me to be there. What do you think? I'm a puppet? I'm a robot? It doesn't work that way. And the answer is yes, it does. Because the question is, it boils down to one very simple thing. When you wake up in the morning, like I said just a couple minutes ago, when you wake up in the morning, there's only one question you need to be asking yourself. The question is, what does Hashem want from me today? If Hashem wants from me today to turn my back on everything that I worked on for the past 5 years, and he wants me to do something else, again, you should be pretty confident that that's what it is. Okay, well, that's a different story. I'm not advocating that you should be a neurotic, person who's building castles in the sky and constantly doing new things. I'm saying in a healthy way. If you understand in a mature, healthy way that Hashem wants you to do something else, you do it. Why? Because you have one goal and one picture in mind. You don't have any other picture in mind. You have one picture that says Hashem wants me to do whatever he wants me to do. So whatever it is, it's going to be. Even if I've been building something up for so many years, and I've been fully invested all the way. If I need to pivot away from that and go to something else, that's what I'm going to do. And sometimes it's very surprising. I was talking with, I had this gentleman over at my house Friday night. Very random how he came to my house, but sister, brother-in-law, my brother-in-law's friend knows his friend. I'm not even joking, by the way. My brother-in-law's friend knows his friend from Texas, and he's coming to Crown Heights, and so my brother-in-law was going to send him to my sister's house. My sister couldn't have him for whatever reason. I forget what it was. So she asked me if I could take him. So this guy is like 16 levels removed from anybody I know. But we had a fascinating conversation. So this is not this time. This was a couple of times ago. Oh, and this is even that guy. These are two other guys. And this person is their friend. So I got mamish have nothing to do with this person. So, but he came to my house with Rosh Hashanah, and he's come a couple times since. And he's a law student. Fascinating conversations every time. He's like a smart kid. And it was interesting because I asked him, he's like from ish, and whatever. Yeah, so I asked him to say something about the table, and he said over a very nice idea when he said in the name of Rabbi Sachs. So it was talking very nice, and then it could be, and so then we were Farbrengen. I had some Bachram over also, so it was like Farbrengen style meal. It was very nice. So I'm talking to this guy, and then I tell him, I don't know how the conversation did. I've been harassing him about Hakel. It's like the third or fourth time he's in my house this year already. So every time he comes, I'm harassing him about it. And he probably thinks like it's the whole Judaism. Like I lay it on really thick on him. I don't even know why, but I do. And so I was telling him that you really gotta find fellow Jewish students in your law school. He's in Hofstra. Now you gotta invite them over for Hanukkah, make a Hanukkah party. So fine, Tuesday night he's having two friends over. He told me. So I told him in connection with that. So I told him the story that Jonathan Sachs himself tells all the time when he first came to the Rebbe. Right? You're familiar with the story? Just very quickly, that Jonathan Sachs was a young law student. I don't know law student, philosophy student in Cambridge University or Oxford. One of the two, one of those pompous English institutions, and he was coming to the United States for whatever reason, and he made a whole tour visiting, respected Jewish leaders to ask them his questions. He was a philosophy student. He had a lot of deep questions about God, faith, etc. And he was a smart man. Even as a young man, he was obviously very, very bright and very deep. So he had a Chassidus with the Rebbe. He says himself. He said this story himself. He said it by the Kinnos. He said it many times, but he said it there for sure. I remember I was there, and he said this story. And he said that this is definitely one of the pivotal moments of his life. That came to the Rebbe, and he asked the Rebbe all of his questions, and he says honestly, the answers were good, but that wasn't the the pivotal moment of the Yechidus. What was it? The pivotal moment was that all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the Rebbe asks him, "No, what are you doing to promote Jewish life?" I think it was Oxford. He says, "What are you doing to promote Jewish life in Oxford?" He looks at the Rebbe and says, "What are you talking about?" He says, "What are you doing to promote Jewish life in Oxford University? You're a student there. What are you doing to I'm a student there. I'm not an outreach. It's not my thing." And but the British, they always they always like to say things in a circumventional way because they're very polite, right? So he started the sentence. He says a story. He says the way he started the sentence was, in the situation that I find myself, and he was going to finish off about how it doesn't make sense. And the Rebbe cut him off right there. And the Rebbe said, "Jew never finds himself in a situation. You make your situation." And he says, "You have to," and he did that. And he says that literally changed his entire life. That one idea, how you don't find yourself in situations, you place yourself. You make your situation because you know that Hashem put you there. And I think, again, it's the same point. Maybe we could argue with the nuances, but I think it all it comes together on the same point, that Hashem puts you in all kinds of interesting situations, and you don't find yourself there. Hashem placed you there by design for a reason, and it's not a reason to get aggravated or frustrated. It's a reason to look for the cues, look for the signs of how I can understand that this is something Hashem wants me to do, and this is an opportunity Hashem tells me to do something, to make something.
Sometimes it's the mindset thing. Sometimes you practically can't do very much in the situation. What you can do is change your mind that you can accept it, that this is where I'm meant to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Correct. Yes. Definitely a lot of it takes place internally. And whether or not you're going to actually effectuate change on the outside is debatable. But yeah, absolutely. In fact, it starts inside. So just to translate it for maybe a drop more. Because there's something I think about sometimes. So with what? No, so I told him this story at the table. No, it was no miracle story. He hasn't come from yet. Yeah. And no, I just mentioned this story to him. It was on my mind. That's all. And I was telling him it did work out because I said that student was Jonathan Sachs. I didn't tell him who the student was when I first started the story. So, that had a little bit more dramatic effect. But no, I was just trying to tell him that he's in Hofstra. So I said, it's your responsibility to gather the Jewish students in Hofstra and make a Hanukkah party. So he's doing it. It's a shame. But as far as the people, the current company, so this idea for me and where I am in my life has its implications. But it has implications for anybody wherever they are in their life. So let's talk about it. Let's say, for example, in a situation of shidduchim. It's just, again, I'm not a dating coach by any stretch, and my children are far too young for that. So I don't profess to have any experience in the matter, but I can, I think, apply this idea to that area of life because, again, it applies to every area of life, and it's so true. And that is, I don't know what you have going on in your mind. And I'm not saying, I mean, you, and anybody, but we all have pictures. We have an idea. We have an image. It could even be down to a certain person. I have a certain idea of who the person is going to be, what he's going to be like, and I even have this image. At this age, I'm for sure going to be married by this age, for sure. Like, it can't be. And then after that age, God willing, I'm gonna have a kid, and then we're gonna have a beautiful home, and then we're gonna have guests in our house on Friday night, and then I'm gonna have my kid at the table, and I'm gonna go to the parsha sheets. And you have this whole movie reel that's played out in your mind. You can have it all the way down to 65. You're like, you know all the way. You know any people like that who have that whole idea mapped out? So I made the mistake one time when I was younger, mapping out, by this stage, my one benchmark, I think, is the only one I think that I hit. Of all the things that I fantasize that I've hit by certain ages, one benchmark is what I hit, and it really had nothing to do with me. And that at 30, I'm going to buy a house. And that did happen. But that was totally by luck, and more my wife than me. So you really never know. So, but everything else did not. So we have these ideas. We have these pictures. I always use the word picture because it's so true. Because, you ever been to those simchas, those weddings of like the big Lubavitcher family? You ever seen that? So, I remember growing up, my parents are both Bali Tshuva. So I remember we had, those original Sefer Shluchim books that were printed in I think it was in the 80s, maybe early 90s. So I remember we had those in our home, and we were in there because I grew up on Shluchis in California, and I don't have a small family immediately. I'm from one of 12 siblings, but it was just us, nobody else. So when we had, so I remember looking in that Shluchim book, and even back then, there's already like big families. Some of the families had typically wedding pictures, right? And some of them have these sprawling, tribes that like spilled onto the whole dance floor. And I was like kind of jealous, like, we're only 12, But I don't have any frum relatives, it's kind of, I kind of felt left out. But Baruch Hashem, my children, it's not the same situation. But so I could tell you about my last brother's wedding. So there was probably about 100 people on the floor, and so you try to take that picture. It's impossible. It's absolutely impossible, right? Because you have 20 people under the age of 3. So each one, at least 1 or 2 is inevitably screaming for some sort of candy or is having a tantrum. Someone's diaper just happened to, right then. So it's obviously impossible. But then, okay, so I think everyone like gives up on that one. Well, but then, you have your family photo shoot. You ever see those people go to family photo shoots? They hire a photographer and they go out, and I'm telling you, I have personal experience. You go out and you get you get a fall foliage photo shoot. Everyone dresses in burgundies and burnt oranges and the yellows, and everything's perfect, and all the hair accessories are matching, and everything's put down to the. You even found burgundy shoes. It's not easy. Burgundy shoes for a boy, not easy. So then you go out to the park, and you got the perfect tree. It's just got the right gradient of from burgundy to bright yellow. It's perfect, right? And then you take the picture, and just then one of the kids tantrums or just something happens, right? It always happens that way. So this is a literal picture. And the literal picture, it never works out. It's always so frustrating. Why is it frustrating? It's frustrating because the parents are stupid. It's frustrating because the parents think that they're going to get a perfect picture. But of course it never works that way. The perfect picture never works out because life is not a perfect picture. It doesn't work that way. So that's why I like the word picture, because it's an easy and quick metaphor that's exactly kind of the point. Yeah. Yeah, then it's all part of the picture. Yeah, exactly. So, but the thing is, it's so obvious. I can make fun of myself now, right? And saying, it's so obvious to anyone to say that, of course, you expect 7 kids under the age of 10 to perfectly align under some tree in November, in October. You think that's going to happen? You're obviously insane. So that's easy for us to say, and it's true. But the reality is, we all do that. We all do that all the time. We all do that with our own lives. We always have these pictures in our mind. It's going to be this way. It's going to be that way. I'm going to marry this kind of guy, and then we're going to go on this many dates, and he's going to look at me this way. He's going to say that to me this, and he's going to have these values, and I have a value list that's, let's say, from here to here. I know exactly what I want. I got the 30 values down, and I even have them each one numbered. So I can have I have ratios, I have quotients for each one. I got it all mapped out. I know exactly what I want. And and if I could generate a guy on AI, I'd have him tomorrow. But people are not generated on AI, thankfully, at least not yet. So, although I was thinking, I was working with the chatbot the other day. My job is definitely on the line. But as writing, I'm saying. But for now, I'm still okay. But we'll see. So, but it does, yeah. So we have these pictures, but the pictures don't work out that way. And you have to. Now, am I suggesting that you should give up on your values? No, I'm not suggesting that. Am I suggesting that you should hold out and settle for second? But no, none of that. It's just a mindset. The mindset knowing that you don't necessarily know. You don't know. The picture that you think is exactly the way it's going to be may not be the way it is. Chances are it's not going to be. You don't know. And if you wake up tomorrow and you say to yourself, you know what, I'm ready to embrace the way Hashem wants it to be. Hashem is going to show me. Right today, I'm fully invested in today. I'm collecting spoils on the Yams of today. I'm fully invested. I'm not a pushover. I'm not just sleepwalking through life. No. I'm fully invested in today. But I'm very well aware that tomorrow I may have to be fully invested in something else entirely. And I'm not going to get any whiplash from that. Because, if it could be whiplash producing, it's not. Like this. It's really not nursing a certain image. You're not holding up a certain picture, it must be this way. And this doesn't work. I don't know if it's going to be extremely distracted. It would be a lot easier. I'm suggesting values things that are so you can choose my channel to see if it's just this man a little bit on your radar. But the key way for whatever reason. But you still keep listening. You relax. Action, my father, but I never know what she was doing. But I'm not doing this now. It's actually that it's up to those things. The more you have, the more it's not only usually, but the more flexibility you become. Right? We want to like slap you smack your face, you're not gonna know. Because you're too busy. You're sitting on a picture. Yeah, like the crazy parent at the bar, making sure like that for 3 hours. And you're like, that's too hard. That's what this picture I have in mind. I'm not going to like, oh. So yeah, you will not see those sides when they come, even if they come rolling over you like this. But if you let go of them and you wake up increasingly every day, more and more open to the notion that I'm not just going to keep myself available. What if Hashem throws at me? You never know what's going to happen. Never know what's going to happen. I've seen it in my own life. I'm sure you've seen it in like microcosms. And if you keep yourself running on that track, you'll see it more and more and more. So just to conclude, I thought that probably one point is that you want to learn Chassidus, that's great. And you should learn and learn. But take an idea. Take an idea. This is you can learn. You can learn on Heimer, Parshas, Boy. I remember taking 4 different ones. It's all the same. You're not it's all the same. It's not like that was multiplication. But if you see an idea, you see language, you see all the right words. That's the word. All the right. That it's just listen. Which one is from Bria and okay, good. That's good. What is it? What is he saying? He's saying that language that you talk to your father and your mother or your mashpia, and that works for them, don't necessarily work for you, and that's okay. These are different generations. It's always changed. So what's the matter? The man again is not to throw away the ideas. You're not throwing the baby out of the bathwater. It is change the bathwater. Okay? Keep the baby, change the bathwater. So change the language. Ways to talk to here's one idea. This is one idea of hundreds. The same guy with the man, he was there. And we're sitting in shul, and he was obviously so disappointed because it's a whole one. And so we're sitting, and I was after Shemesre, and I was waiting for whatever. So we picked up my jump grade, so we all thank for his work on the Tanya. So I asked him about Tanya. He said, well, okay, what is talk about Tanya? So I'm like, a lot of things. So he's like, tell me this guy. He said, tell me one thing. I said, one big idea. You want to hear one big idea? I told him one. I told him that Shabbos says you have to find your mistakes. And you never demand it to be perfect, you just demand it to be massive. It's nonsense. Right? So, and I literally said it like that almost. Yeah, I said it here in one sentence, I said it in that one. And because that's just easy, it's just a quick and easy little concept. What's the author would say? You have two conflicting urges in yourself. I told him the battleground of those two conflicting urges. I don't know why the words came to me, but I was going to say your body's like your body, not the battleground, but the battleground of the two poles. It's like, yeah, the words I used just came to me then. I said, your human experience. It's not human experience. The human experience is the battleground. How you live your life. Are you going to want? I don't know, are you going to want ice cream? Because Mashpim always use ice cream, right? Although ice cream is totally not an issue anymore, but I actually usually use Netflix, but I didn't feel like Netflix is going to be the right word. So, and I had them because again, you have two conflicting urges. So they're both legitimate parts of experience. And in fact, you identify more with the positive temptation. And the name of the game is not to not have urges at all, but rather the name of the game is to have self-mastery. That's it. I think anybody can understand that. You can tell it to any idiot on the street, they'll understand it, right? That makes a lot of sense. And that's a distillation of 12 chapters in Tanya or more, or 15, right? And again, it's not because it's nothing crazily innovative that I said. There's no genius behind that. It's just a couple words. So that's the point. Take these ideas, learn these ideas, and I've told myself as much as I tell it to you. I know everybody says that, but it's a work in progress. I was learning yesterday at Mimer with the Shabbos morning. It's you got to wade your way through it. That's the learning that stuff. It's dense, very, very dense. But if I take the time, you take the time, just distill it. I use the word distill, I mean, I use the word. Can I ask you to pass me one of those there? Do you by any chance have some? No. On behalf of Living Chassidus, we want to thank you so much. First of all, this is one of our favorite selected books. It's a historical novel, and it's applied really, really, really well. So I hope you enjoy it, and thank you so much for time spent with us, inspiring us, and giving us tools. And we all have a good Yom Tov. So thank you. Thank you. Yes. If it's okay, we have a tradition to take a selfie with our speaker. Okay.